Time for another episode of the Cultural Hall. I know over a week ago I promised that there would be interviews coming back. Well, my guest, co-host, news anchor-ish person was no help. He didn't help me get any interviews. He tried. He tried very hard. Verlin, the news wizard, joining me. He has connected me with multiple friends. Great interviews waiting in the wings, which Verlin has promised, hey, they will happen. But I have not been able to get those locked in. I will say, however, confirmed today with date and time and calendar, I've got an interview with Sierra Larson, who is a female chaplain. She will be joining me. Also, Alonzo Gaskell and Richard Moore, a couple of authors of a great book about the prophet Joseph Smith. So those are in... I don't know, ink in the calendar. I don't know. They're coming. Those interviews are coming. We are going to do a couple of shorter newses. One of them will be all Utah focused, all Zion focused. And then the other one will be for all y'all in the mission field. In that great inciting, inflammatory way that the pride of Utah engages with the church. So that's programming notes. How are you, sir?
I'm well. Are you saying you're 0 for 2 on my two suggestions?
I mean, so far, one
Okay.
of them hasn't even ever messaged me back.
I'll harass both of them. I thought the one had messaged you back and you had certainly had a date and time, but I will harass
we had
both.
a date and time with the one, and it didn't work out.
Ah,
He found himself, and
he
I'm
was
just a
probably
show.
working or something
I'm
like
just a
that.
show in podcast form. He's like, listen, I'm in a meeting and I can step out, and I was like, no, I'm not gonna be that guy. Let's reschedule. So long as you make sure that you reschedule, and now here we are. I
Okay.
haven't heard from
I
him.
will take it upon myself to work with both of them until we have a confirmed date and time.
Thank you. And the reason being, they're going to be great interviews. I will ask again, how are you? I know you were on death's door. When you get to be your age and you start to get sick, you never know. It might be the
Well,
end.
I have a perfect record on something. Every year I do not get the flu shot. I
Mhm.
get the flu, and I proved it yet again this year. Like we chatted about last time, I was at an event with 45,000 of my closest friends over 3 or 4 days,
Sure.
and somebody shared something with me, and I was flat out for at least 3 days and a good week to recover.
Well, and it's the
So,
thing that's going around right now, right? It's either
oh
there's
my
like
gosh.
norovirus and there's avian flu and you got the regular flu. We still are messing with COVID. And then there's various like strains or whatever of RSV. So I don't know why you wouldn't get your shot. Are you stubborn?
I just kept putting it off, putting it off, putting it off, and just never got it. So
Okay,
I have
Mr.
nothing
Kennedy.
against getting a shot. I
No,
am
it's all
not.
right,
I mean,
Mr. Kennedy. That's fine. That's fine.
I am good with vaccines myself. I took the polio vaccine for a reason, you
Oh,
know?
interesting. Interesting. What are we even referencing? I'll tell you what. So here we are, we're 8 days into your guy being the president of the United States of America. And I just,
Hey, remember it was your state that put him in, my friend.
yeah, well, okay. I speak not for my state, but only for me. We will get into several parts of, things that is affecting in the nation. How are you, dealing with it? Do you put yourself on a news diet? Are you able to
Ah,
consume all that's going on and be like, well, I've been through several administrations and I know that every time there's different things. Like, how are you dealing? And then I'll share with you what I'm doing. Then we'll take a break and get to the actual news.
yeah, I'm not putting myself on a news diet. I'm consuming the same news I did
Okay.
previously. I guess I've tried to be pretty philosophical about it
Mm.
and go back to my third grade education and believe in checks and balances.
Okay, we don't
And
have those
that,
though, right?
well, I'm believing in them until they prove that they don't work any longer. And
Okay.
maybe today we prove they don't work. I
Yeah,
don't
okay.
know,
Okay. Okay.
but that's where I'm believing.
Yeah, 10 minutes is what I've done. I used to try and watch like 20 or 30 minutes, but I allow myself to get as whatever as I want to be in 10 minutes. And then I just go, all right, I got to do some other things. But
Yep,
man,
yep.
I can escalate and de-escalate in 10 minutes like you would not believe. It's
There is a
incredible.
lot going on. That is
Yeah.
for sure.
And I guess I would say, because undoubtedly people are like, oh, well, we know we're used to it's not a political show in podcast. Oh, I can't believe I mean, I guess doing what you say you're gonna do, I guess. Is that the lesson? Be the person that you tell everybody.
I
Um,
guess on the surface, yeah. The
yeah,
question is, can it really get done? There's
yeah,
certainly a lot of words around it and a lot of paper flying. The
sure,
question is, does any of it really happen?
sure. But I guess if there is a very, 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 very small, like, let's put a spin on this that makes you go, okay, then it's, doing what you said you were going to do.
Yeah, yeah,
Knew what you were when we picked you up, sort of things.
yeah.
Parallel intended in
Just
that for those
just
that remember
looking
that video.
just looking for the impact of the experts that are being put into the positions they're being put into.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
experts into the
exactly.
positions. Yep. Yes. All right, let's you left it up to me to decide. We are going to make this episode of news. This will be the Zion centric news.
I
So we're
see.
going to go Utah centric. There's lots around the church, obviously, with Utah. So everything will be somehow shoehorned into Utah related. And then the next episode, this will be a little bit shorter than our typical news episodes would be. And then our next one will be everything from the mission field. Yes, am I trying to be inciting? Yes, do I hate the way that people will say out in the mission field for anything outside of Utah or Idaho? All of those things. All of those things are true.
Personally, when I ever heard that growing up, and I've never lived in Zion except for going to the Zion University, and living outside of Zion, I always took that as a huge compliment. The mission field is where the real work happens.
Sure.
The people just sit back and eat bonbons when they're not in the mission field.
Yeah.
So,
Speaking as a Zionist, which is, I guess, what I am based on our discussion right now, not actually a Zionist, everyone. Calm down.
oh,
Never had a bonbon. So there's that.
there you go. Okay.
Never had a bonbon. Ice cream, right? Is that what
Yeah,
you
I think it's like chocolate covered ice cream or
Yeah.
something like that. I don't know.
I know there are something something shells dipped in chocolate shells. The thing about a bonbon is almost gone. That's as much as I know.
Oh, I didn't even know
I also
that.
know
Good for
that there are
you.
bite
Wow.
size and bonbons are the right size. It's 20 ice cream bells. That's what it is. 20 ice cream bells dipped in chocolatey shells. The thing about a
Okay.
bonbon. Marketing works. We're going to take a break. We'll come
Oh.
back and do actual articles of news. BestDJinUtah.com is the website. That is where you go if you would like me to come and DJ your event. Now, will I do a family reunion where you all wear the same t-shirts? You bet I will. Will I travel to wherever you're at? Uh-huh. Am I reasonable as far as what I cost? Yes. Yes. Do I bring a good time? Yeah, all the things. Listen, Best DJ in Utah, it's my company. It's a thing I do that allows me to be able to have the time to do the cultural hall. So if someone's getting married, you think, man, they need a great DJ. You're throwing a party, whether it's a 50th or 60th or 40th or 20th or whatever the party is. I've done them all and would love to be able to do that. An anniversary party, certainly done those. I did a baptism in 2023. Yeah, we did a big dance party at a baptism. Spoiler, not a Mormon baptism, but it was fun nonetheless. BestDJinUtah.com is a website. I will get back to you within 24 hours with a quote. Come on now. BestDJinUtah.com. Here in the second half of Articles of News, we do actual articles of news. Hit it, Peter.
You can't lose articles of news.
And away we go. Now, with this being Utah centric, there are some of these things are just sort of, it's the church and it's Utah. And so we will, just cram it in here. That's where I'm doing this first one. In northern part of the state, that is Davis County, there's a huge road project that's going on. They're doing eminent domain for being able to make this road wider because people from one part of this county need to get to another part of the county quicker. And there are 6 holdouts. And one of those holdouts is the church, and they're like, "Nope, we ain't moving. You can't eminent domain us. You can't, kick us out of here." The plans, you'll find a link to this in the show notes. I mean, it basically puts the road on the front doorstep of this particular church in Clinton, which is in Davis County.
Yeah,
But
Clinton is between Hill Air Force Base and Hooper is what
yeah,
I discovered, right?
yes.
Yeah.
And thank you for saying Hooper the right way. A lot of people
I've
say
been
Hooper.
trained.
A lot of people say Hooper. It's Hooper.
I've heard it's Hooper, and I've heard the best fried chicken in Utah is in Hooper,
Yeah.
but I've never been there to try it.
Well, you should. You know what? In fact, next time you come out, we'll go to Hooper.
Lunch at Hooper.
Done.
Okay.
Done.
Sounds good.
So the church, I don't know, kind of interesting. I would think it would
Yeah.
the church
It's
to be able to do it, but I mean,
I think it's kind of interesting because we've been taking legal action against cities
sure.
in some cases to get some buildings built. And in this case, the city wants to take legal action, or the, I guess, Utah Department of Transportation. And it says they're going to take the full setback on the property. Well, when you buy a piece of property, you know the setback can be taken at some future point in time.
Yes.
So I have to imagine the church, thought at some point this road was going to be widened, else you wouldn't have built a building there in the first place.
And the road benefits, like this seems to me where it's a thing where, okay, like, are we mad? Is it because they're taking all the lawn that we continually water but don't actually use for anything? Like,
Exactly.
why are we, of all of the things, it's not taking away parking spots, it's not taking away anything
No.
else. Why wouldn't we just go, we don't really like it, give us fair market value, great, done,
On. Yeah.
move on. And
Perfect.
we're going to put the Clinton Temple right over here.
Yeah, I don't know. And the article itself doesn't describe why the church is not cooperating in that case.
It's not
But
the only one.
no,
There are
five others.
entities.
And as I looked at the road itself, it looked like they're probably private landowners that are holding out as well.
It's the bishop, the first and second counselor of that ward.
Oh, that's right. This is Utah. People
Yeah.
live across the street from the
Yeah.
church and
Yeah.
down the street. Yeah,
Yeah, I don't want a road there. So
exactly.
yep. So there. That is our first Zion centric news story. Yes, I'm trying to be inciting.
That's awesome. The second one kind of blew my mind when I read the headline. The headline is Hundreds Attend Catholic Mass on BYU Campus.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, oh my gosh, that's pretty amazing. I didn't know there were that many Catholics in Provo and Orem, and even if you stretch to Spanish Fork and Pleasant Grove to pick more people up. But it turns out about 30 of the attendees were Catholic. The rest were all members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And this is a Catholic Mass that had been held evidently for years on end, starting in the 80s. And it was stopped at some point in time. It looks like around 2014. And then it just restarted up. And students at the university have completely supported this new Catholic Mass. Now, I'm also going to believe that there's a comparative religions course that requires you to attend so many meetings of other churches. And this is a terribly convenient way to get one of those requirements, which was great.
So I like it. I liked the interfaith part of it. They did it at the Wilkinson Center, which is the student union for people who don't know. The fact that it went on for 32 years prior and then sort of stopped. Okay, that also is sort of a cool thing. I don't know why. So, I mean, certainly we wouldn't allow Satan worshiping, and I love that I take it to the nth degree. But like, why, when we allow, our Islamic brothers and sisters, our Muslim brothers and sisters, our Jewish brothers and sisters to be able to worship in our stake centers and our ward houses if they need it.
I know it has been done.
Yeah, we wouldn't allow them into our temples, certainly, and that's not what I'm saying. But the Wilkinson Center is none of those, although probably there are weekly church meetings held in the Wilkinson Center.
Of course. Yeah. My daughter's ward met there when she was a freshman.
Okay. Yeah. So there is that aspect of it. But why would we not open that up to say, hey, having a building is expensive, and we have one, and we happen to not be using it. Or we'd love to be able to create a great bridge with you folks and have you come in and do this.
Exactly. I'm hoping what they do is they do a Passover experience, and they do,
cool.
Some other religious meetings there as well, and expose members of the church, students to those religions and those practices as well. On my mission, I was lucky enough to get to go to a couple of Catholic masses, a couple of weddings, and a couple of funerals. And I was very curious and very interested, and it was very interesting in terms of the way they handled those particular ceremonies.
Now, when you went to Mass, did you take communion?
I did not.
Okay.
No.
You could have.
I
Uh-huh.
could have. But as with the mass that was held at BYU, they handed out a pamphlet to everyone that came in, kind of explaining when you stood up and sat down, when you kneeled down, and repeated things that the priest was saying. And they also explained in that pamphlet that they encouraged non-members to not take communion because that was a sacred rite in the Catholic Church, just as it is a sacred rite in our church every Sunday as well.
Sure. Yeah, and similarly, I think that the invitation, if that's the right word I want to use, when you attend an LDS ward for the first time or as a visitor, you are welcome to take the sacrament if you choose. It is sacred, and I think that it sort of means something different for those that have entered into the covenant that is, symbolizing. But if it is, I'm going to take a little bit of this bread and drink this cup of water and what I know of Jesus, be thinking of him. I don't think that that's a bad move on
No,
a
I
visitor.
don't think it's
Yeah.
sacrilegious. I
Yeah.
think that is something that's changed during my lifetime. When I was younger, I was made aware in our sacrament meetings that those who were not members were discouraged from taking the
Interesting.
sacrament. If they took it, no one said anything or did anything, but the deacons would almost intentionally bypass people that they knew were not members
Ah,
um, in terms
yeah, that
of the
doesn't seem like the
sacrament.
way to do that.
No, it doesn't. It's changed. So.
Yeah. The way to do it is to grab all of those people that don't belong and then fly them. I'm kidding. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
Put them in the overflow so that
Yeah.
everyone knows. Yeah, yeah.
Uh, I'm sorry,
Sorry.
everyone. I watch the news for 10 minutes and I'm just so lit up. It's intentional. I'm following into the news trap that they would have me to fall into, but I
Yeah.
just, whatever.
Well,
Uh,
of course, what I loved at the end of the article, or some point in the article, it talks about the service and what went on, and then it says, following the service, the Catholic Club handed out cross bracelets. That's
hmm,
kind of cool that they did that.
yeah.
And then the next sentence, refreshments were also provided.
Yeah, the
How
cross
Catholic is
bracelets.
that?
The cross bracelets is the equivalent to our crumble cookie. That's how that.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
That's how it works. Yeah, yeah.
Um, I have thought in the last couple of years, I haven't done anything about it, but I always kind of keep an eye when I'm out shopping in places that aren't Utah, that I think I would wear a cross if I found something that I felt like resonated. Cause so here's what I'm not saying. Like the big gold chain and the big gold cross that's like all that. It's not the guy
The
that I am.
Flavor Flav size
Yeah, yeah,
cross.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. I'm not that guy, but I do occasionally kind of keep an eye and go, if I found something, I don't wear a necklace presently, but I might consider wearing a cross bracelet or a cross necklace.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm sure you were growing up, you heard the same things over and over that I did on the culture side of the church was we don't wear crosses because we celebrate the resurrection,
Hmm.
right? And I agree that we celebrate the resurrection, but the atonement, the death of Christ was a critical part of the atonement. And
Sure.
so I agree with you. If you found something that just appealed to you and felt right to wear, I don't see any problem in wearing that. I choose to wear certain things every day that have certain symbols built into them that remind me of things as well. And hopefully I remember those. And by wearing the cross, if that helps someone remember the ultimate sacrifice and the atonement that we get to live with each day, what a great reminder.
Yeah. Yeah. What is it that you wear every day that I'm just teasing? Okay. Uh BYU, or as I should say, the BY Jew.
I still have a hard time saying that, but man,
Oh,
he says it himself and he
I
gets the
know.
crowd chanting it.
Yes, it's so
Oh,
uncomfortable to me, but good for Jake Retzloff.
yeah. No, BYU is getting a fantastic improvement to their reputation overall because of Jake Retzloff. I was listening to an interview the other day with an ESPN sportscaster who was the play-by-play caller at the BYU game the other night,
Hmm.
and Jake Retzloff was at the game and then afterwards appeared for a fairly lengthy interview with this gentleman. And he said that he was amazed at the humor, the acceptance, the way that the students absolutely love and adore Jake in all the right ways, and that it's a perfect example of how BYU, in fact, welcomes people of other faiths and other points of view to campus. I guess if you're a star sports player, that
Yeah,
makes
that
sense.
yeah, that makes it a little easier for us,
It
right?
does.
Help us. I mean, we are open to everyone, but it's certainly one
Yeah.
of three active Jewish people in the entire university, and he happens to be a phenomenal quarterback. Okay, all right.
He does, and he's coming back to play it back again with a great number of returning people and some fantastic additions that may surprise people with how good they are next year.
I have not listened to this yet, but in the show notes there will be a link to Jake Retzloff participating in a Q&A at a Jewish comedy event that's hosted by the Chabad of Utah County. Which, by the way, I didn't know Utah County had one of those. Speaking of your Catholic masses and
Yeah,
your other diversity,
sounds like a great interview potential to get a person or two from that group.
I thought it was interesting to note that Retzloff has not experienced any anti-Semitism at BYU or in Utah um, at all. That sort of surprises me, right?
Why does that surprise you?
Oh, because people are ignorant.
Well, people are, but I've always, even in my most ignorant stages of life, I always felt fairly close to the Jewish community,
Yeah.
even
So
though
you're
they didn't know I existed because my family read the Old Testament. I studied the Old Testament in seminary. I feel close to the Mosaic Law and understand it to some extent.
sure,
And so I've always felt, I mean, we're part of the family of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, right?
sure. Yeah,
Um,
yeah. So taking what you're saying, so I guess I'm also surprised when I hear from people of color that attend BYU about racist things, right? I'm both surprised and not surprised. And so I guess I just sort of wrongfully lump that all together where ignorant people will say
ah,
something like, oh, yeah, the Jews. It's like, oh my gosh, I don't think you can say that, just like you can't say other things as well. What? I'm joking. Like
well,
I would think
I
there
think
would
the
be,
visible minorities, you're right. The visible minorities, ignorance shows up a whole lot easier.
yeah, and maybe so. But I like that he is coming back. I like that within this interview, as it sounds, that he jokes around a bunch. Didn't know that he
Totally.
was as funny as he is. I wonder how many times, and I'm betting he can't talk about it just like other people with the church educational commissioner, etc. Can't talk about it, but like how many times people have been like, you know, you can join at any time, or hey, why don't we meet you over at the
Would
swimming
you,
pool at the baptismal font? We'll,
what do you think about families being forever? Would you
yeah,
like to talk to a couple of young men or ladies about that?
yeah.
Yeah,
I've got to imagine that well-intentioned, horribly misspoken people have engaged him in that way, at least at BYU.
probably so. Probably so. But again, one of those interviews you're trying to work out. One of my friends who played sports at BYU talks about the very kind way that religion is shared with people who are not members of the church and how they're exposed to it. And it's pretty common for people to come to BYU who are not members to leave BYU having become members
Sure,
because of those examples.
but not Jake Retzloff, not the BYU Jew.
Not yet.
No, oh come on. I would think, and this is a serious thing.
He
Like,
may lose his sponsorship from Manischewitz.
yes, and that's millions,
Yeah, but the
literal
question is,
millions of dollars.
can you be, well, you can still be Jewish heritage and a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of
Yeah, but
Latter-day
I'm sure
Saints.
Manischewitz isn't like, hey, Jewish person who converted to, to be a Latter-day Saint. Would you like to be you know what I'm saying? And I'm
Yeah,
not.
no, I
I
get
think
it.
he's a deeper person than all that.
I think he is too. Yeah.
And I think that $1 million would be a hard thing to be like, yeah, you know what? I, I mean, right? Maybe I'm not wrong. Maybe he experiences the whole like gamut of that, the name and license, and then the woman that he meets at BYU, he converts in a couple years.
Maybe, but I just appreciate the fact that he's being who he is
Yeah.
openly and seemingly very authentic, and people are reacting so well to him. Now, if BYU was losing and he threw away a bunch of games, maybe things would be a little bit different, but that's with any athlete. So
Well, I
Good
hope
for
we're
him.
not anti-Semitic to any athlete that loses a game. Geez, what
Well,
kind of sports fanatic are you?
we're anti athlete to certain athletes who don't do things we think they ought to be doing sometimes.
Or
So
coaches when they lose a game. Get Kalani out of there.
that's right.
Wait. Keep him there. Did we extend his con? Oh, I cannot believe some of that crap. As we continue on with the Zion-centric news, I thought this was interesting. I do not listen to this podcast, but this made me want to, and I think I'm going to go back and actually binge this. This is Jenica Sedgwick, who is the church's sustainability manager, was on the Church News podcast. Do you ever listen to that podcast?
I have not.
Yeah. It's a little down the road for me.
Okay.
And that's why I haven't, right? Because I feel like it's like everything is always going to be, if you'll forgive the term, it's gonna toe the line. It's going to, well, we really think it, it's all that.
You know the story you're going to get before you get the story.
Yes.
Yeah.
Did you ever have any challenges with that? Absolutely not. From the moment I heard it, I embraced, that kind of thing. But to know that there was a good hour spent with Sister Sedgwick talking about what the church is doing for sustainability things, especially environmental sustainability, super cool.
It is. It is. And as I thought about it and read this article, I thought, will this change the way that any members work in terms of sustainability with their own living, their own yards? Now, I'm lucky enough, I just sold a house and bought a house. The new house I bought has absolutely no lawn at all. It's all natural, all trees, no watering at all.
Now, is that intentional? Did you look at that and go, this is the thing I want to make sure I
No,
have?
not at all.
Okay.
Not at all.
Okay.
Purely unintentional. But I am reveling in the fact that I have not had to, number one, mow any grass, trim any lawn. Susan would laugh if she heard me say that because, frankly, for the last 15 years, I paid others to do that.
Sure.
I haven't done it myself, but I haven't had to pay anyone to do that, which is great too. And my neighbors are exactly the same. So I think there is a benefit to that, and it's a beautiful neighborhood. It's a wonderful neighborhood to live in. What I love that she had to say is she said our mission within our sustainability efforts comes from the first presidency. And then she quoted an April 2000 General Conference address from President Nelson that says, as beneficiaries of the divine creation, what shall we do? We should care for the earth, be wise stewards over it, and preserve it for future generations. We are to love and care for one another. And I loved how she put all of those together. Loving and caring for one another includes being good stewards of the earth.
Yes. Here's what I think of when I hear about the sustainability in the church, and certainly here in Utah, why it's appropriate in this Utah-centric news episode that we're doing. My church building and my stake center, my church building has a softball field in the back.
Right.
Full-size softball field. If you hit a home run, you're hitting people's houses, so not ideal for those folks. Sorry about that, everyone.
They knew what they got into when they moved there, probably.
Never seen anyone except for people that are like doing their dogs off leash in that field.
In the field.
The bases are not even there, I don't think. It's not the proper dirt. It's not any of that stuff, right? Pause. The stake center, we have a pavilion. It's a full-on, like, closed-in pavilion. We actually have a gate, 8-foot tall chain link fence around our thing. And there's also a soccer field, large soccer field. Both of those areas, the one at my ward house and the one at my stake center, kept very green, fertily green. And I have only seen an activity out on the lawn at the stake center. It happens one time in the fall. They do a big harvest fair. People bring all this stuff from their gardens, and you can bring crafts, and they do things and all that. But it's 2 days. And the remaining 363 days, we water that and we whatever. Now, here's my proposition. I know why we don't do it. I just hope that we could shift this. I'm sure it's liability that we don't do or allow like community rec leagues to come in and use these things because it's our property and people get hurt, then it's the church, whatever.
But if they have the right insurance policy, that shouldn't be an issue.
Right. But can you imagine if it's like, Verlin, you are called to be the youth soccer coach for this area of Taylorsville. Is that members of the church? Nope. It's whoever wants
We
to
cover
come.
the whole ward boundary.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's whoever in from 4500 South to 5400 South, from State Street to Redwood, who wants to come and play soccer. You'll teach them how to play soccer. There will be intramural games, and we're going to use the heck out of this field. And
What a cool thing to do.
I would love it.
Oh,
And in
be
a day
great.
and an age when people can't afford things, when we don't have as much time to socialize with other people, to just be able to have something like that, let's use it, or let's do something else with it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I've just in the last couple of days gone to most of the buildings in our stake.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a couple of buildings. The stake center has no extra property around it. It's just parking lot. We have a building called the Mebane building that has a beautiful field next to it that I would have loved to have played touch football on or tackle football on as a young man, right? They have a covered pavilion. I'm sure the pavilion gets used, but I don't know where those fields and if those fields ever get used, but they're green lawn again.
Yeah.
And so there are those cases.
And I would even take it one step further, Sister Sedgwick, because in the front part of our chapel, it's all lawn, and no one ever does anything on it, right? We could xeriscape the entire front, and I would feel that much better of it being like, yeah, hey, we're being responsible, because Utah is a desert, and this is beautiful. Yeah. It's beautiful xeriscaped. You get some professional people to come in, and at a stake level on a fifth Sunday, we're talking about xeriscaping and stewardship of the land. Right?
That'd be cool how they taught you how to xeriscape, and they taught you, what the indigenous plants are. So then you could look at your yard and to see if you wanted to do something there too.
Yeah. Yep.
I'm always impressed as I drive through the suburbs of Utah, how beautiful people's lawns are. And then I remind myself, all that water is brought from somewhere else to water all those lawns. Yeah.
The church, that is church headquarters, has saved more than $2 million in annual energy savings, achieved through implementing the practices that they have done, and have reduced its water use by billions, with a B, billions, with all of their conserving water in the drought-prone areas. And I think that's just Temple Square, etc. I think
it's great. I thought it was cool they mentioned international efforts. So in Africa and in Brazil, they're putting solar panels on the roof of buildings. Why not? Why wouldn't you use the sunlight and the solar that you can use every day? Here in North Carolina, we could certainly use solar panels. We have tons of sunny days.
Yep.
And we don't use that much hot water in a church. The baptismal font is probably the only time we use significant hot water, that and cleaning dishes after a church activity.
Sure. It's not for preparing food. We got a new sign.
That's right. You got a new sign.
Yeah. This area is not for the preparing of food, it is for the heating or reheating. Oh my God.
we have 2 full ovens and 2 full stoves, and we have those big signs sitting next to them. Exactly.
Not prepare things here.
Does that mean you can't make waffles at a early morning seminary activity?
That sounds like preparing to me.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
All the people won't ever know what it's like to. I remember one time when I was teaching in my old ward, back when I was married, round 1, I made cookies for my 12-year-old kids. Teaching.
Yeah.
And the smell of the chocolate chip cookies went throughout the church,
wafting through the building.
And they're like, don't ever do that again. And I was like, fine by me. I did it one time. Delicious.
Next time, make popcorn.
Yeah. Salmon. I'm going to reheat salmon.
That's it. That's it. No, I was thinking buttered popcorn on Fast Sunday. That would be the perfect thing to do.
I couldn't make cookies on Fast Sunday.
You could. You just couldn't eat them.
Well,
object lesson, my friend?
Yep. Delayed gratification. Good point. This one real quick. Whatever. The Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. Only one of them is still even adjacently active in the church. And
she figures out how to hit the press regularly.
Yes. Her name, Lisa Barlow. She has a son, Jack Barlow, and as this story says, his mission to Columbia hasn't been easy. After coming down with a mysterious illness during his time away from home, the last we heard was that her oldest son was back on his feet and enjoying the cuisine of South America. And now there's more to the story. he got sick again or needed to come home. And on a Zoom call, he said, I absolutely will not come home unless you promise to send me back, for fear that he wasn't going to be able to continue to serve a mission. I need it in writing, and whoever at the church needs to do it as well. I need to make sure that it is known that I am going to go back on my mission. And in the end, Jack Barlow came back home. He stayed home for 3 weeks and then was able to go back to Columbia. And Lisa Barlow was like, quote, my poor baby.
And then Lisa does the humble brag of all ultimate humble brags and says, upon arriving back in Columbia, he even got a leadership position in his mission. AP or assistant to the president. To quote her, he loves it. So now that his health has been cleared, he flies all over Bogota on these tiny, tiny planes. I don't think he's flying all over Bogota, the city, one city in planes, maybe all over Colombia.
Could be.
In planes, fly from city to city and do zone conference. They do education, and he still does service. He's loving his mission, and he doesn't have much longer left.
Okay. I think it'd be hard to give a little empathy to Jack Barlow. It would be hard if your mom is on this TV show.
My heart goes out to him.
Yeah.
Man.
I hope, I don't know, because I don't watch the show. I don't know if he's kind of a humble-ish person.
No idea.
Association would tell me that maybe he's not. I shouldn't put that label or judgment on him, but I hope he's just out there for the right reasons and doing the right things and loving the country, and he's able to do that and comes home and can sort of separate himself from everything that is
his mom and the circus that goes with his mom, as we'll talk about another member here in a little bit with a similar circus.
It's so hard. Because and here's the thing, if I decided to lean into something YouTube, right? I mean, by the way, you can find the Cultural Hall on YouTube, and you can see me and Verlin with this episode and most episodes. We're thinking about doing some shorts, not wearing shorts, but like the short videos, some of that kind of stuff as we move towards the future. But here's the deal. If I decided that I wanted to lean into some sort of online video content, it would be likely that I would try and involve my wife in it. My wife would want nothing to do with that. 0% to do with it. And yet it would be part of my life. And at the point that we, are able to sustain our household by it, like there's a certain amount that she would have to deal with that if that is what I'm doing to, make money and have that be. And
you see that with all of these social influencers, right? Whether it's their minor children that are involved or their spouses in mom talk, whatever the case is, there are members of the family that are somewhat drug in without their full, I guess, approval, or without their full volunteering to be part of that just comes with the territory. And that's got to be difficult when you're not the person that controls that. And as a missionary, I can't even imagine what that would be like, to have all of this hitting the press and being out there in social media when you're trying to focus on your mission. Although if he's assistant to the president, it shows he's been focusing on his mission and doing a good job of it.
Yeah, you'd hope so, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. There's an issue just sort of in what you said that I'm excited to read. I think it's Sherry. It might be Shari Frankie's book, where I think it hits a little different from minor children or minor aged people to a spouse or an adult aged child, because you would hope that just like with my wife, if my wife was like, absolutely not, I don't want anything to do with anything that you would do online, please leave me out of it, might be harder. People might even be craving that content, but ultimately she has the agency and ability to be able to choose that. Whereas how many times, Ruby, Frankie, and others do you see? And this is little Jack who's, doing the thing.
Yeah.
Isn't that, say hello? And Jack's like, I didn't consent, but also I don't know what consent means. And also I don't want to do this.
That's right. Well, and there's some stories about the Frankie family in terms of being at Disney World and a 12-year-old son not wanting to do things, and him being locked in a hotel room all day long alone for punishment, and not able to go to Disney World because they were doing product endorsements at Disney World. There's all kinds of mess that comes along with this. and a tendency for people to maybe not make the best decisions.
So let's go to that news story. Is there anything else? This is, now Shari. I think it's Shari. Uh, Maybe Sherry. Her book is out. People are able to read it. I have to wait for my new Audible credit to be able to get it. How do you feel? Obviously, no one wants an abusive parent, Mormon or otherwise. Do you think, like, if you started over, all your kids are grown and out,
Mm-hmm.
and if you were content creating, like, how do you engage that with kids, or what do you think the like proper pathway is
Yeah,
for these
I
folks like
don't
this?
know. Thank goodness I didn't have to deal with this.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're making this your life's work, and your family is obviously exposed, the closest thing I can think of is I know a couple of college sports team coaches very well,
Mm-hmm.
and they have children.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes their children are there at games and sometimes they're not. And it strikes me that they try to be very careful in not making their children part of their job, right?
Mm.
So their children don't bear the brunt of a loss or some kind of other issue going on with the team. They try to manage that pretty carefully. And I'm sure that there's a number of social media people that do the same.
Mm-hmm.
But boy, it seems like there's some that don't even think about it, and in fact almost exploit their children along the way in the way that they treat their children and use their children in their social media posts.
Do you
So I
think
think
that
it's a tough road.
Do you think that this is a different thing at all from like, and maybe you had this family growing up in the church where it's like, we'll use the Frankie as the name because this is the story that we're talking about, but the Frankie family, we show up and we are front row church people, and the Frankie family, we do not, we do not do this. And the Frankie family, we show up early and we stay late and help put away the chairs. And you just see all of this, like what feels like maybe
Almost
posturing
performative.
or
Yeah.
performative within
Yeah.
the ward level, where the parents, that's great that the parents choose to do that, but they inflict their will on their kids to the nth degree. Like, I get it. Parents should be able to encourage their kids and all this stuff, but is there any difference from taking it from like we are the in this and we do it this way to, this social media aspect? Obviously there's abuse involved, but I mean,
Yeah,
do
I
you
think
think
it's
that it's
I
just
think
as
it's a
performative?
spectrum. I
Okay.
think it's a spectrum. I think anytime there's money involved,
Mm.
it tends to cloud people's judgment even more. Yeah, that family that almost every ward has, maybe that what's clouding their judgment is how they hope others perceve them,
Yes.
right?
Or like they're
But
trying to aspire towards callings, and that's a real thing. Yeah.
perhaps, yeah, yeah. But at some point in time, that falls apart, and we all
Yes.
know that it falls apart, and they deal with that falling apart. When it's money and it's millions of people, then I think it takes that to a whole different level. Um, Now, that being said, I think it's somewhat ironic that this book is being written and the book is getting publicity and the book is going to sell because of who her mother is
Sure.
and all of the infamous things that have gone on around her family. And it's kind of a tell-all. I mean, there's some revelations in here that, I think her mom's going to be surprised at, and
Sure.
certainly her father.
Yeah.
Um,
Things just because it's part of the article, you can find the link in the show notes. Some suggestions that maybe there was some same-sex attraction with Ruby Frankie and Jody
well,
Hildebrand.
I'm not sure it's a suggestion. I mean, the daughter says they condemned queerness very publicly while embodying it privately.
Yeah. Again, having not
You
heard
know?
what she means exactly, like did she see her mom and Jody kissing? Is that what she's saying by that? I don't know. I haven't read the book.
Yeah, I haven't read the book either, but from the article, it makes it appear that they certainly made arrangements in their life to be able to spend lots of time together and fairly intimate time together as well.
Mm.
But again, none of us were there. None of us can judge it. It's a little interesting that Ruby's, I guess now ex-husband, or is he still her husband?
I think they are divorced now. Her and
Kevin
Kevin.
Frankie
Yep.
is a former assistant professor of civil and environmental engineering at BYU. I need to talk to my father about that because he was the chairman of that department just before his retirement,
Interesting.
and find out if he knows Kevin Frankie. I'm sure he must.
Yeah, he must.
He's still very close to the faculty there. But I feel bad for Kevin being wrapped into all of this when he had a professional career going on at a very well-respected university and in a program in that university actually that's getting great research dollars and creating innovation and becoming quite well known around the country for their earthquake engineering prowess as well.
It's all about that coring that they did at the temple, at the Salt Lake Temple. What was that called? Vertical coring.
Vertical coring, drilling big, long holes to anchor things. Yes.
BYU and their vertical coring. Worth noting, too, that as of the recording of this, we are now less than a month away from the Hulu 3-part series, Devil in the Family, The Fall of Ruby Frankie. So I want you to put on your calendar March the 1st morning. First thing in the morning, my time, we are going to talk about the Devil in the Family. Me and you. You're going to need to have watched all 3 episodes.
Okay.
It will be all the things.
Is it me and you alone, or are we wrapping some
we'll get some other
into
people. We'll get some other people too.
I loved what you did with Heretic. I thought that was a fantastic way to approach Heretic.
I could do that. If you want to be a part of that, the morning of March the 1st, you have to have watched all 3 parts of that Hulu series that drops the night before. Email contact@theculturalhall.com. We'll go up to 6. How about that?
Sounds good. Yeah.
And it'll be in the morning. I don't what day of the week is the 1st? I don't even know.
I haven't even looked.
The 1st is a Saturday morning, so you're going to have to give up your Saturday morning.
I can do
to
that.
be able to be with us and do that episode. Look forward to that, though. It's Devil in the Family. Love that they name it stuff like that.
Yeah.
American Primeval.
Well, I can't wait for the next TikTok. This next one that got in trouble, Hannah Hyatt, is in hot water, right? Because in her TikToks, she's gone around and kind of made fun of her poor performance in house cleaning. But at some point, I guess there was one video where there were 17 different diapers, dirty diapers, strewn all throughout the house. I'm hoping they were disposable for those of us that have used diapers. I'm hoping they were wrapped up real tight and taped closed and not laying all over, open all over the house. Yes. But there's enough sensitivity to what Ruby Frankie did that she's been reported several times to the authorities. And it seems that the Ogden Police Department is now opening an official investigation to make sure that there's nothing going wrong there. So again, be careful with what you post on TikTok. Not that you should be hiding anything, but it strikes me that someone is trying to make their life so publicly available does in fact make their life publicly available for good or for bad.
Yeah, to me, the way with things like that in particular, like kids, pets, I feel like once you open that up, like you have to, going back to the way that you curate, like, hey, how does this look? Like you have to look at it in a way that it's, well, hopefully you're not ever doing anything that would be sketchy or skeezy or anything like that, right? And man, I at the point that people are calling, DCFS or whatever child, CPS,
Child Protective Services,
wherever you are, whatever it's called, I'd be like, is this worth this? Because I was just talking about my kid and I hadn't taken the diapers away, and now I've got a case investigating into me like that. Oh,
well, and you know how people overinterpret things because we've all been there, right? You're sitting in the grocery store and some kid throws a fit and the mother grabs the kid and puts them in the cart. And there's always someone else who's usually hasn't been a parent that says something rude to them about their treating their children wrong.
Yep.
If you're including your children on videos, people are going to, overinterpret, misinterpret all kinds of things that go on in your family.
Yeah, it's difficult because you want to, you don't want to be the one that you go, I remember I saw that and could have said something.
Yes.
You don't want to be that person.
That's right.
And you don't want to be the jerk that's like, hey, pal, get your act together.
Yep.
All right. So we are not going to, just wash over the tithing case. So let's hold that one off. We'll do that in a future news episode because there is an update of that, but that won't be our mission field one. That'll just have to be with somebody else. Why don't you take very quickly the Portugal and Dominican Republic, and I'll take the other two real quick, and then we'll be done.
Yeah, sure.
Episode.
Sure. So just recently, the ambassadors from both Portugal and the Dominican Republic paid a visit to Utah and visited with the first presidency. I thought it was interesting that Portugal, they noted Portugal has about 48,000 members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Obviously, missionaries have been in Portugal for many, many, many years. And then compared to a much smaller country, the Dominican Republic has over 150,000 members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints,
Hmm.
and missionaries there far less than Portugal itself.
Hmm.
But I thought it was great that the ambassadors took time to come to Utah and meet with the first presidency, and saw that as an important thing to do.
Then we'll go here. The Utah Woolen Mills, if you've ever been down to downtown Salt Lake City, the church had a deal with the Utah Woolen Mills, and then they were like, hey, you can stay here, but then there was an earthquake, and now they're like, you know what, we're tearing it down. We're going to build something else. Too bad.
That's a good excuse.
That is a short version of that story.
Yeah, condemning the building from the earthquake is a convenient way to remove a tenant.
Yep. Well, we want you out of there. Deseret Book was a primary tenant in that building until it left in 2019. And the church has said, it's our building. We can do what we want. And what we want, I think they're doing another high rise of condos.
Oh, are they really?
That's
Okay.
that's what I think that I've heard.
So they
Someone
may be
will let
getting
me
in
know.
more tithing hot water if they don't watch out.
Well, listen, not a single of those funds was directly used.
I know. That's why I'm kind of
They
bummed.
say.
I'd love to talk about the tithing issue because I have some strong opinions there too.
Yeah.
But
I think that what you're going to, since we can address it very briefly, what you are going to see is the church will be forced to be more transparent with finances, and I welcome it. But I didn't want to spend any time on that.
agreed.
We'll come to it. We'll get to it. There is an old synagogue in Salt Lake, older than the Salt Lake Temple. It's about to become an art museum. It's the B'nai Israel Temple. It's the oldest synagogue in Utah, built in 1891. It was designed by prominent architect Philip Meyer, and now it's going to be turned into an art museum in the next coming years. So when you make the visit, the pilgrimage to Zion, as every good member of the church should do. Yes, have I made everyone mad yet? Check that out. And then lastly, this one has been in the news queue for forever. Up in Ogden at the cemetery, they are offering $2,000 reward for information for people who vandalized a one-of-a-kind statue in the cemetery. What does this have to do with the church? Well, standing at an impressive 7 feet tall and 58 inches across, this magnificent statue of Jesus has an incredible history. It was commissioned by President Gordon Hinckley of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. It's graced the mezzanine of the Joseph Smith Memorial Building for 7 years before being relocated to the University of Nauvoo in Illinois for a decade. And now it's at Levitt's Mortuary and Alto Rest Memorial Park, where people destroyed it.
Yeah, it doesn't say exactly what they did. Did they break it? Was it spray paint?
It was
I'm not
painted
sure the
and
nature.
broken a little bit. Here's the deal. Write a letter. Cause some
Don't be
unrest.
jerks.
Don't break
Yeah.
things.
Yeah.
I would much rather someone come into a meeting and be like, bah, than come in and be like, hey, I'm going to smash your everything.
Yeah, it makes for a much more interesting testimony meeting if they just go up front and share what they're thinking.
Yes.
Absolutely. And I've been in testimony meetings where that's happened. That's a lot of fun.
I've only had a couple that have been, I've had curse words. The mother of all curse words, the F dash 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 word in a
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
We had some decidedly antis come into our meeting and decide on Fast Sunday that they should go up to the front pulpit like everyone was and started preaching against the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And I love watching the bishop break into a sweat when that happens to try to figure out what he's going to do. But he handled it very, very well.
How did he handle it?
He asked after a few minutes, he stood up next to them and said, this isn't the right place to do this. Let's go have a conversation in my office. And walked the gentleman to his office directly.
Oh, wow.
And the meeting continued.
Wow, that's incredible. And the next part of the meeting is everyone getting up and being like, "Can you believe what just happened?"
You get more of this is the only true church on the earth. And I know it with the fiber of every being in my body.
I heard something the other day. Let's see if I can find it quickly. A quote about certainty that struck me. Oh, no. I think it was on a Leading Saints episode. I'll have to find it. But the idea that certainty can be a sin, being certain about
Well, if there's
something.
anything we're learning in studying the Doctrine and Covenants this year, it's that we're all flawed.
Yes.
I mean, the section 3 of the Doctrine and Covenants is Joseph Smith being dressed down by the Lord for all of his weaknesses.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's instructional to all of us. So none of us can be certain about ourselves, let alone others.
Yes. Well said. Hope that this episode nourishes and strengthens your body.
That if you weren't healthy enough to listen this week, you'll be healthy enough to listen next week.
And that when the time comes, you'll be able to travel home in safety. I will tell you guys that the next episode will be a complete mission field news episode, and look forward to that. That will be also with me and the news wizard Verlin. In the meantime, Chris at Alpine Lakes Travel, Debbie Wanless, Chocolate Cake Bites Podcast, and the Tiger with a U will be saving a seat for you
on the back row
of the
Cultural Hall.
Save me a seat, it's sure to be neat on the back row. We